Why freedom scares most people. Most people say they want freedom. Freedom to travel. Freedom to make money on their own terms. Freedom to escape control. But when freedom finally appears in front of them, they panic. Because freedom sounds powerful in theory. Until you realize freedom removes excuses. No one to blame. No structure to hide behind. No guaranteed outcome. Just you, alone with your decisions. And most people would rather live inside a predictable prison than face the psychological weight of complete responsibility. That's why so many stay trapped in jobs they hate, routines they secretly resent, and lives they never consciously chose. Not because they can't leave, because uncertainty terrifies them more than misery. If this perspective already feels uncomfortable, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone still confusing security with freedom. Freedom is one of the most romanticized ideas in modern society. Everyone claims they want it. Financial freedom, freedom from authority, freedom from rules, schedules, obligations. But if you study human behavior closely, most people do everything possible to avoid true freedom once it becomes real, because freedom is not relaxing. Freedom is psychologically violent. The moment external control disappears, something uncomfortable happens. You are forced to confront yourself. No manager telling you what to do, no system organizing your day, no predictable path guaranteeing stability, just your own mind making decisions without protection. And for most people, that level of responsibility feels terrifying. This is why so many individuals unconsciously choose structured suffering over uncertain freedom. A toxic job still provides certainty. A miserable routine still provides familiarity. Even unhealthy relationships often survive because predictability feels emotionally safer than the unknown. Human beings adapt to cages surprisingly fast, especially when the cage provides comfort. That's the part nobody wants to admit. Many people are not actually seeking freedom. They are seeking safe captivity, enough comfort to avoid pain, enough distraction to avoid self-reflection, enough income to suppress desperation, but never enough uncertainty to force transformation. Because transformation requires identity death, and identity death feels dangerous to the human brain. Think about what happens when someone suddenly gains freedom after years of structure. No alarms, no supervision, no forced routine. At first it feels exciting. Then the anxiety begins. Because without external systems controlling behavior, internal discipline becomes everything. And most people never develop internal discipline because they spent their entire lives borrowing structure from institutions. School told them when to think. Jobs told them when to work. Society told them what success should look like. So when those systems disappear, many people feel psychologically lost rather than liberated. This is why some individuals sabotage opportunities that could completely change their lives. Not consciously, subconsciously. A man says he wants financial independence, but procrastinates every meaningful risk. Someone claims they hate their job, but avoids building skills outside it. Another person dreams about freedom, but panics every time stability is threatened. Why? Because the human mind values certainty more than possibility, even painful certainty. That's why people stay inside environments slowly destroying them. At least they understand the rules there. Freedom removes the rules. And once the rules disappear, personal responsibility becomes unavoidable. Now every failure feels personal. Every wasted day feels personal. Every bad decision belongs completely to you. No institution left to blame. That level of accountability crushes people psychologically, especially those conditioned to seek permission before action. This is why many societies quietly discourage true independence. Independent thinkers are harder to control. A person financially dependent on systems behaves differently than someone who can walk away. Fear disappears. Compliance weakens. External validation matters less, and systems built on predictability do not benefit from psychologically free individuals. So from an early age, most people are trained for obedience disguised as responsibility. Follow instructions, avoid risk, seek approval, prioritize security, repeat what works. And over time, the fear of uncertainty becomes so deeply wired that freedom itself starts feeling unsafe. That's the paradox. The very thing people claim to desire becomes the thing they unconsciously avoid. Not because freedom is impossible, because freedom demands psychological strength most people never build. Real freedom requires self-control without supervision, direct without external pressure, discipline without reward, and the ability to tolerate uncertainty without emotionally collapsing. Very few people ever develop those traits, because most never needed to. The system did the thinking for them, and eventually, something even darker begins to happen. People stop fearing the system itself. They start fearing life outside the system. That's when dependency becomes psychological. A person can complain about their routine every single day, and still defend it aggressively the moment real change appears. Why? Because predictable suffering feels safer than uncertain transformation. The human brain is designed to protect familiarity, even when familiarity is slowly destroying you. That's why freedom often feels emotionally uncomfortable at first. Not because freedom is wrong, because your mind has been conditioned for structure for so long that independence feels like danger. Look at what happens when someone suddenly has complete control over their time. Most don't become productive. They become overwhelmed. Pause disappear, focus disappears. Without external pressure forcing action, hidden weaknesses immediately surface. Poor discipline, poor emotional control, addictions, avoidance patterns, mental chaos. This is why freedom exposes people. It removes the distractions hiding who they really are. A structured life can conceal a weak mind for years. Freedom cannot. That's why some people unconsciously return to environments that limit them, not because they enjoy control, but because structure temporarily silences internal instability, and the modern world reinforces this dependency constantly. Everything is designed to keep people stimulated enough to avoid deep thought, notifications, entertainment, algorithms, endless consumption. Because a distracted mind is easier to guide than a self-aware one, a truly free person becomes dangerous the moment they stop needing constant validation, constant distraction, and constant permission. That kind of person thinks independently, moves independently, and most importantly, they are difficult to manipulate through fear, which is why psychologically free individuals often appear different from everyone else around them. They move slower, calmer, more deliberate. They don't panic when trends change. They don't desperately seek approval. They don't collapse emotionally every time uncertainty appears, because they've trained themselves to survive without constant reassurance. That's real freedom, not luxury, not passive income screenshots, not motivational quotes about escaping the matrix. Real freedom is internal stability without external control, and achieving that is far more difficult than making money. Money without psychological freedom changes nothing. A wealthy man terrified of losing status is still controlled. A successful person addicted to validation is still controlled. Someone financially comfortable but emotionally dependent on systems is still not free, because freedom is ultimately a mental condition before it becomes a financial one. And that realization changes how you view society completely. You start noticing how many people organize their entire lives around avoiding discomfort instead of pursuing truth. Safe opinions save careers, save ambition, save identities, everything carefully designed to minimize uncertainty. But safety has a hidden cost. The more your life revolves around avoiding risk, the smaller your world becomes eventually. People become prisoners of the very comfort they spent years chasing. And once comfort becomes identity, growth starts feeling like threat. That's why true freedom belongs to such a small percentage of people. Most individuals never escape the psychological need for external structure. They need authority to function, rules to feel stable, violation to feel worthy, distraction to avoid confronting themselves. But the rare individuals who learn to build internal discipline instead of dependence operate differently. They stop asking the world for certainty. They stop waiting for permission. They stop expecting comfort before action. And slowly, fear loses its control over them. Not because uncertainty disappears, because they become strong enough to face it without running back to the cage. That's the hidden truth most people never realize. Freedom is not scary because it's dangerous. Freedom is scary because it forces you to discover who you are without the system telling you who to be.